Several of you said that you were interested in continuing with Ophelia. And would you like to pick up where we left off and kind of watch her degradation? I hadn't planned to do that today, but since you asked it, I still have my notes, and I can just pick up. I hope I can pick up where I left off 3 weeks ago, so some time has passed. We were looking at Hamlet's attack on this really innocent girl, and there are mysteries in the relationship between Hamlet and Ophelia. We learned that Hamlet is probably much older. He's nearing 30. Probably Ophelia is in her late teens. So she has an experiential base which is very different. The question in the play is why is she so vulnerable to his attack? What happens to her that causes her to go insane? And having taught it and watched the movie recently, I think when we see an innocent who has abandoned her own innocence out of love and therefore given herself to Hamlet, we can start to understand the gravity of what happens to her. In Much Ado About Nothing, Hero actually faints dead away when she's accused of being unfaithful at the marriage. Do you remember how that goes? And then they pretend she's dead, and she rises to punish the beloved who has falsely accused her. But this is a comedy, right? I mean, in a comedy you can have all kinds of strange things, and nobody is hurt in the end, and actually Claudio is chastised. But this doesn't happen to Ophelia. I mean, she is so mortally wounded by the man she loves doing what he does to her that she actually dies. And I think if we want to pick up where we were, we can actually see that. Do you have any Hamlets with you, or should I just pursue us, read it to you? After Hamlet has assaulted her, remember, go get thee to a nunnery. This is a girl who's been raised in a very, very innocent, inexperienced environment. He's saying, go to a whorehouse. All women. Now, we can sympathize with Hamlet, but he's not the topic of the lecture for me this year. Last time we did Hamlet, I focused on him. And I do sympathize with him. Gertrude's marriage has spoiled females. And Hamlet is not the only Shakespeare character for whom women are ruined by bad women. King Lear is devastated by his daughters. And the most misogynistic speech in all of Shakespeare is Lear talking to Gloucester on the heath, where he says, all women are monsters. They're all monsters because I had 2 daughters who destroyed me. Hamlet is somewhat in that mode. The problem that with Hamlet is that he is absolutely fixated on Gertrude's love for Claudius, and he transfers his anger towards his mother and his sexual curiosity and therefore his reaction of repellence to the whole relationship of men and women to this innocent girl who's given herself to him, probably. In Act 3, Scene 2, if you have the complete Hamlet, they're getting ready for the play, the dumb show. And they sit down. It's going to be entertainment. And Hamlet comes up to Ophelia and lies down on her lap. Do you remember that? And the whole scene is filled with this kind of nasty implication. It's not 2 people in love. It's not like John Donne's Ecstasy, where 2 innocents are lying on a bank, just staring into each other's eyes in perfect innocence. Hamlet is pressing against Ophelia's innocence. So he sits down around line 104. Lady, shall I lie in your lap? So he lies at Ophelia's feet. No, my lord. I mean my head upon your lap. Okay. Everything he says is going to have this kind of nastiness to them. She says, I, my lord. That's okay. All right. So she's sitting there, and he lies down and puts his head in her lap. Hamlet says, do you think I meant country matters? Meaning nasty rolling in the hay the way country kids do. I think nothing, my lord. Hamlet pushes it. That's a fair thought, to lie between maids' legs. What is, my lord? Nothing. Ophelia tries to make light of it. You are merry, my lord. Who? I? I, my lord. Hamlet says, oh God, you're only jig-maker. What should a man do but be merry? For look you how cheerfully my mother looks, and my father died within these 2 hours. Nay, it is twice 2 months, my lord. And now we know how long has passed. The time has passed is how long? 4 months. I mean, she and Gertrude's married. And you go over there on the other side of the stage, Gertrude is probably sitting next to Claudius and laughing and joking. I should be happy, right? Look at my mother. She's having a good time. And he pushes this. Hamlet says, so long. Nay, then, let the devil wear black, for I'll have a suit of sables. Oh, heavens, died 2 months ago and not forgotten yet. Oh, then there's hope. A great man's memory may outlive his life half a year. There, watch the play. The poisoner in the play woos the queen with gifts. Of course, what's happening? He's recreating on stage the murder of his father. Ophelia says, what means this, my lord? Mary, this is mitching malacho. It means mischief. Oh, belike this show imports the argument of the play. Ophelia is very serious, right? I think what we're getting is a demonstration of what the play is going to be like. We shall know by this fellow. The players cannot keep counsel. They'll tell all. Will you tell us what this show meant? What kind of a girl is she? Very straightforward. Naive. I want to know what it is. Tell me clearly. And he's playing word games and weaving funny things around her. He's simply not responding. It's very frustrating to be around this kind of person. Hamlet says, is this a prologue? Ophelia says, 'tis brief, my lord, very short, so maybe it could be a prologue. And he says, as woman's love. Doesn't fit because Ophelia loves forever, doesn't she? But he's already showing the shift. Now look at the consequence of this. Look at her descent after her father is killed. Act 4, Scene 5. Act 4, Scene 5. The queen comes in with gentlemen. The gentleman says to Gertrude, her mood must needs be pitied. She's distracted. The queen says, what would she have? And this is what the gentleman says is going on in Ophelia. She speaks much of her father. She says she hears there's tricks in the world, and hems and beats her heart, spurns enviously at straws, speaks things in doubt that carry but half sense. Her speech is nothing, yet the unshaped use of it doth move the hearers to collection. They aim at it, and botch the words up fit to their own thoughts, which, as her winks and nods and gestures yield them, indeed would make one think there might be thought, though nothing sure, yet much unhappily. So she's starting to lose her mind, and it's in the process is these disconnected remarks, lacking certainty, dealing with her father's death. And she's going to come in now. Enter Ophelia. Ophelia says, where is the beauteous majesty of Denmark? The queen says, how now, Ophelia? Ophelia sings, how should I your true love know from another one? By his cockle hat and staff and his sandals shoon. She sings in her madness, and we tend to ignore the songs, and yet it's in the songs that we see what's happening to her. How can you tell your true love? How can you tell? In the song says you can tell by his hat and his shoes. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to tell, there he is, Nordstrom shoes. The queen doesn't understand the song. Alas, sweet lady, what imports this song? Ophelia says, nay, pray you, mark. And we get the other side of her concern. Two things are in her mind. One is, who's the real man? Who loves her? The other is what's happened to her father. He is dead and gone, lady. He is dead and gone. At his head a grass-green turf. At his heels a stone. She's lost her father. Queen says, nay, but Ophelia, pray you mark. White his shroud as the mountain snow. Alas, look here, my lord, says Gertrude. The king comes in. How do you, pretty lady? Well, God dild you, God shield you. They say the owl was a baker's daughter. Lord, we know what we are, but know not what we may be. God be at your table. We know what we are, but not what we may be. You have to actually stop and pull these lines out. Do you know what you're going to be? Do you have any certainty in life? See, Ophelia has lost certainty. And the death of her father, which was unexpected and murderous, the lack of continuity in her relationship with Hamlet has left her completely without mooring. There's no basis to it. The king says, oh, he's conceit upon her father. Ophelia says, pray, let's have no words of this, but when they ask you what it means, say this. And now look at the other side of her insanity. Tomorrow is St. Valentine's Day, all in the morning betime, and I am made at your window to be your Valentine. Then up he rose and donned his clothes, and up the chamber door, let in the maid, let out a maid, never departed more. Starts out as a Valentine's song about love, and he gets up and he opens the door, and in comes a virgin, but she never is a virgin again after she leaves. The king says, pretty Ophelia, indeed, la, without an oath, I'll make an end on it. And then we get the one that's most powerful in the movie, if you saw it last year. By Gis and by Saint Charity, alack and fie for shame, young men will do it if they come to it. By cock, they are to blame. Quoth she, before you tumbled me, you promised me to wed. He answers, so would I have done by yonder sun, if thou hadst not come to my bed. No, it's not fair at all. No, why would Ophelia be thinking these songs? Because she's in the circumstance, isn't she? He made promises of loyalty and love, and she knows what young men are like. They destroy young women. And the king says, how long has she been thus? And we get her sad reply, I hope all will be well. We must be patient, but I cannot choose but weep to think they would lay him in the cold ground. My brother shall know of it, and so I thank you for your good counsel. Come, my coach. Good night, ladies. Good night. Sweet ladies. Good night. Good night. Gertrude says when they're burying her, I thought she would be the bride of my son. I thought I would deck your wedding gown and not your grave, right? And that's what Ophelia thought too. But she doesn't have any faith, none of this at all. We see her dead, Act 4, Scene 7, if you want to finish off with Ophelia today. How does she die? Line 160. Your sisters drowned, Laertes, drowned, oh where? And then this famous and beautiful speech from the queen describing her death. And you ponder the way she dies. There is a willow grows aslant the brook that shows his hoar leaves in the glassy stream. There with fantastic garlands did she make, of crowflowers, nettles, daisies, and long purples, that liberal shepherds give a grosser name. Underneath this beautiful line is kind of obscene implication, right? And there are flowers which have kind of phallic imagery to them. Shepherds call these things something unpleasant. We call them long purples. But our cold maids do dead men's fingers call them. There on the pendant boughs, her crowned weeds clambering to hang, an envious sliver broke, when down her weedy trophies and herself fell in the weeping brook. Her clothes spread wide, and mermaid-like a while they bore her up, which time she chanted snatches of old lauds, as one incapable of her own distress, or like a creature native and endued unto that element. But long it could not be, till at her garments, heavy with their drink, pulled the muddy wretch from her melodious lay to muddy death. What kills Ophelia? Does she commit suicide? Students, even when they've just read the play, they seem to miss the speech entirely. She's climbing in the trees looking for flowers. She's making garlands for herself. And the branch breaks and she falls down. What's her reaction to the imminence of death? She just floats. There's that, is it Rossetti? Nothing at all. She just lies there and floats down. There's a great Pre-Raphaelite painting, as it Burne-Jones or somebody, of her just floating down, singing songs until her dress soaks up and down she goes. Why would she not, let's put it, she's crazy, so any answer would do. But why would a person not do something to save herself in that circumstance? Because there's no reason to do something to save yourself. In other words, she seems to have completely given up the normal reasons for living that you and I would have, which is like falling in love, getting married, having children, right, getting a job. Ophelia is out. She has lost the structure of her life. Yeah, that's right. That's right. But he doesn't, he will actively not commit suicide because he's afraid of what's going to happen, and she has no, it seems to me like, though in Ophelia's death, there's a complete lack of any imagery of the future. What she has planned isn't possible. So the future is irrelevant, and she says this over and over again. You just can't predict it. So it's a pity. Hamlet says at the end of the play, I loved her, right? 10,000 brothers don't love her as much as I did. And what do you want to do when he says that? You want to strangle him. I mean, the guy, how he could do what he did, which is, it's one of the issues in the play. Yeah, Linda. Dishonored. Yeah, all right. Unmarketable. Yeah. Now, I mean, in the real world, I'm sure it was no less common then than here, but she has to be sold by her father. One thing we don't talk about, and I don't think people ever do talk about, is that her relationship with Hamlet would be a socially engineered consequence of her father's position in the court. And that means that she must be pure. You cannot, well, it's no different. When Charles married Diana, what was the most important issue? Right. I mean, this is 1985, and she had to be certified. I mean, that's just utterly ridiculous. You can imagine what it would be like in the Renaissance. So you had to have that kind of certifiable purity. And she feels like she's totally lost. She's the innocent who's no longer innocent. You better be innocent if you are innocent. And that's the way Hero is. I mean, Hero faints when she's accused of having a lover, but she isn't. I mean, she is pure. So she dies out of besmirched honor, whereas the actual actions that Ophelia did herself are what destroy her. That's why this is a tragedy and that's a comedy. Hero is not ever in danger of being literally less than pure. She will be pure until she goes. Miranda isn't either. If you remember, if you've looked ahead in The Tempest, one of the amusing points in that play is that Prospero says to Ferdinand, "You may marry my daughter, but thou shalt not take her virgin not before the night of your marriage." And so these two total innocents are capable of going on to happiness. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't think that's a good question, but I don't see that this is one of his societal comments. I think what he's doing is something that we're not doing. He's giving a depth to the tragedy of Hamlet. And he's exploring Hamlet's relationship to his mother and to Ophelia, who is there as a manifestation of that. But Hamlet's drive to his own tragedy is the result of his relationship with his parents. Along the way, innocent people get abused. And when you get a chance to see the play, or in the times that you see it, don't you all have this incredible sense that she was hit by a truck? I mean, this poor girl, it isn't that he wants to hurt her or drive her crazy, but he has lost control of himself. And when great men lose control of themselves, innocent people die. I mean, Lady Macduff didn't do anything, but Macbeth has her slaughtered. And this sense of someone who should be a bystander and free of consequences, but great people do not allow people to be free of consequences. If they're in their orbit, they hurt. So we're not being true to the play and what we're doing here. I mean, I decided pretty much on my own I want to look at the women and talking with the women about these four plays. But this is not Ophelia's play. Her tragedy reflects right back to a consequence of what's wrong with Hamlet. So I don't see it as a societal comment. I suppose I could if I thought about it long enough. It's a good question anyway. Does anyone have a response to that? See, I think in The Tempest there are implications of, this is a discussion of society. Prospero's relationship as the deposed duke, and Caliban down there at the bottom, and Miranda. I think there are things going on. It's about people who are in their wrong places. Everybody in The Tempest is in the wrong spot, and what Prospero does is fix things up. And you can play with this idea of the right versus the wrong spot, because Hamlet's problem is, the time is out of joint, right? And Hamlet cannot make things better. He is helpless in the circumstance in his play. But Prospero is not helpless. And one of the wonders of that play is that Prospero is a magician, and he can at any moment do what he wants to put people to sleep, punish them if he wants. He's got Ariel there to help him. And as I'm talking, I'm thinking, boy, this would be kind of fun, to compare the helpless versus the powerful. When things go wrong, what happens? I don't think there's a moment when you watch The Tempest when you don't know that everything is going to be just fine. I mean, there are all these horrible implications. Caliban says he wants to rape Miranda. That's a horrible thought, but he's not going to do that. You get the two Trinculo and Stefano, who think that they're going to be the king of the island. They're not going to be the king. They're comic figures. You get Antonio and Sebastian planning to kill Alonso and become king. And I mean, this is all ridiculous. They have no power. Well, neither does Hamlet, and that's his problem. His only power is in his right arm, and he can't raise it and strike to kill. So I've mentioned this before, and I go back to it because it's one of the ways I teach Shakespeare. Shakespeare is a conservative Renaissance playwright who believes that when people are in the wrong spot in society, or desire to be in a spot other than they are ordained to be by their position, you have tragedy. And as long as you have the conservative return to proper place, things can be happy. So at the end of The Tempest, Prospero is where he belongs. His brother is no longer the duke. Alonso's the two. Everything's totally nice. And so comedy and tragedy are the results of things being out of place. And if you're lucky, you're in a comedy. If you're unlucky, you're in a tragedy. Now, I consider myself a liberal, but when I teach Shakespeare, I see the virtues of his sense of rightness. Things need to be right. And the time being out of joint is one of the major ideas in all of Shakespeare. Just having finished teaching King Lear, what's the problem with that play? Old men are babes again, right? Children pull down the breeches of their parents and give them spankings. That's not the way it's supposed to be. And you see this wherever you go in Shakespeare. It's at the very core of play after play after play. What's happening, if we go to Much Ado, what's the humor in Much Ado About Nothing? It's that Benedict and Beatrice don't play conventional lovers. And until they fall in love or admit that they're in love with each other, they're going to have this endless battle, which we like to watch. But the play has to end with them admitting that they really do love each other just terribly. And then we can be happy when the movie's over and say all these things do come out all right in the end, just as it does with Hero and Claudio. You got me thinking about another lecture. Any other questions or comments about that? Should we turn to the two comedies and get away from Ophelia's tragedy? If you'd like, turn to Much Ado About Nothing, if you have it with you. And I just wanted to play with you with the sparring of Beatrice and Benedict. Get my book open to the right spot. Open your text to Act 1, Scene 1, right at the beginning. And get myself in the right play as you like it. Here we go. Much Ado. Okay, Act 1, Scene 1. Around line 27. First of all, Benedict and Beatrice are not the main plot, just as when we did the two gentlemen, not two gentlemen, the two noble kinsmen, we talked about subplot. They're the subplot that goes along with the main plot of the activity while they're trying to get Hero and Claudio together properly. It's a less interesting plot than the subplot. If you saw Much Ado in the movie, how many of you saw the movie with Emma Thompson? So a lot of you. You know that the focus is clearly going to be on these sparring couples. Turn to page 27 and we see them, line 27. We come right up. The first thing that Beatrice wants to know when the news comes that successful battle is over and the young warriors are coming back. Line 24, 27. She interrupts and she says, I pray you, is Signor Montalto returned from the wars or no? Right from the very beginning of the play, what do we know about Beatrice? She's totally interested. This is the person she theoretically disdains. But she doesn't say another word until she gets a chance to break in on the messenger and say, is Benedict okay? Well, if you've ever taught high school, you know this world, right? This kind of, I hate him so much, what's he doing right now? Kind of thing. The messenger says, I know none of that name, lady. There was none such in the army of any sort. Leonato, what is it that you ask for, niece? And Hero explains, my cousin means Signor Benedict of Padua. Oh, he's returned, and as pleasant as ever he was. Beatrice says, he set up his bills here in Messina and challenged Cupid at the flight. In other words, he put up his posters, like the old circus posters, right? Challenged Cupid at the fight. And my uncle's fool, reading the challenge, subscribed for Cupid and challenged him at the Burbold. I pray you, how many hath he killed and eaten in these wars? But how many hath he killed? For indeed I promise to eat all of his killing. Well, so the battle is not new. They've already had a fight. What had Benedict said? He's going to go off and make himself famous in the wars. And what had Beatrice said? Yeah, you go off, you big hero, and I will eat all the people you kill. Leonato says, faith, niece, you tax Signor Benedict too much. He'll meet with you, I doubt it not. Well, the messenger brings her bad news. He hath done good service, lady, in these wars. Beatrice says, you had a musty victuals, and he had hoped to eat it. He's a very valiant trencherman. He has an excellent stomach. Oh, she's slamming him. Yeah, I know he did well. You gave him some extra food. And what is the one thing Benedict can do? He can down the food. The messenger insists on talking about his valiancy. Valiancy, is that a word? Is it? He's a good soldier too, lady. Valor. And Beatrice says, and a good soldier to a lady. One of the things I like about this is that they pay words. So he says, he's a good soldier too, lady. And she says, yeah, he's a good soldier to a lady. But what is he to a lord? Oh, what kind of a soldier is he? He's a drawing room soldier. That's what he is. The messenger is going to keep on puffing him. Yes, a sunshine patriot. A lord to a lord, a man to a man, stuffed with all honorable virtues. Beatrice says, it is so indeed. He is no less than a stuffed man. But for the stuffing, well, we're all mortal. So no trope is going to go past her without her turning it into something insulting. Leonato says, there is a kind of merry war betwixt Signor Benedict and her. They never meet, but there is a skirmish of wit between them. Well, turn to line 103, and you'll see Benedict coming in, and they get a conversation, which is quite amusing. Beatrice says, I wonder that you will still be talking, Signor Benedict. Nobody marks you. What? My dear lady, disdain. Are you yet living? Oh, I would think a person who is so disdainful ought to have died by now. And she says, is it possible disdain should die when she hath such meat food to feed it as Signor Benedict? Courtesy itself must convert to disdain if you come in her presence. She says, I can't die if I'm Lady Disdain as long as I've got somebody to disdain as disdainful as you, right? Or as easy to disdain as you. Benedict comes back. Well, then is courtesy a turncoat? It is certain I am loved of all ladies, only you excepted. And I would I could find in my heart that I had not a hard heart, for truly I love none. Beatrice says, a dear happiness to women. Oh, they would else have been troubled with a pernicious suitor. I thank God, and my cold blood, I am of your humor for that, meaning I don't love men any more than you love women. I had rather hear my dog bark at a crow than a man swear he loves me. This is Emma Thompson, this gorgeous, gorgeous woman. I think Beatrice has got to be played by this really beautiful, funny, witty person. Nobody loves her. Benedict says, God keep your ladyship still in that mind. Right? So some gentleman or other shall scape a predestined scratched face. I always was a sucker for tart-tongued women, They keep the battle going. Beatrice says, scratching could not make it worse if it was a face such as yours. Wouldn't do any harm, yeah. It's a verbal catfight. Yes. Benedict says, well, you're a rare parrot teacher. Beatrice says, a bird of my tongue is better than a beast of yours. Benedict says, I would my horse had the speed of your tongue. Keep your way, God's name, I have done. Well, you can tell from the play that whenever they're going to meet, it's going to be royal fireworks, which it is. Turn to Act 2, Scene 2, and you'll get some of the consequences of this. Skipping over most of the... And where we look to line 24. Act 2, Scene 2, line 24. Am I in the right spot here? Doesn't look like I am. Act 3, Scene 3. I'm sorry, I have the wrong notation down here. Let me see if I can find it. Yes, I'm sorry, Act 2, Scene 1. I miswrote. Beatrice. Leonardo says to her, line 16, Niece, thou wilt never get thee a husband if thou be so shrewd of thy tongue. Antonio says, in faith, she's too cursed. Too cursed, she says, is more than cursed. I shall lessen God's sending that way, for it is said, God sends a cursed cow short horns, but a cow too cursed, he sends none. Of course, anytime you hear reference to horns, you're talking about cuckoldry, right? And so the word here is, this woman talks too tartly, she's never going to get a husband, and she says, that's okay with me. A cursed cow has short horns, don't have to worry too much. In fact, one that's really cursed never gets any horns, never have to worry about being cuckolded. Leonardo says, God will send you no horns. And Beatrice says, just if you send me no husband, for the which blessing I am at him upon my knees every morning and evening. Lord, I could not endure a husband with a beard upon his face. I had rather lie in the woolen. In other words, I'd rather be in a scratchy blanket than have a husband with a beard. At this point, Benedict has a beard. He shaves it later on. You may light on a husband that hath no beard. What should I do with him? Dress him in my apparel and make him my waiting gentlewoman? He that hath a beard is more than a youth, and he that hath no beard is less than a man. And he that is more than a youth is not for me, and he that is less than a man, I am not for him. Therefore I will even take sixpence of the earnest of the bearer and lead his apes into hell. Well, she's got herself fixed up. Either a man has a beard or he doesn't, right? And she doesn't want a youth, and she doesn't want a man, either one. So she's got her life pretty well planned all the way through. Turn over to see how she acts again with him, line 109. Line 109. Beatrice, will you not tell me who you told so? Benedict says, no, you shall pardon me, Beatrice. Nor will you not tell me who you are? This is a wonderful point because both of them are in masks. And the word is out that somebody likes somebody and somebody doesn't like somebody, and she doesn't know that this is Benedict. Nor will you not tell me who you are? Not now. Beatrice says, that I was disdainful, and that I had my good wit out of the 100 merry tales. Well, this was Senior Benedict that said so. Oh, what is he saying? All her wit she gets from reading. She's quite ticked. Well, what is he? Benedict said. And Beatrice says, I'm sure you know him well enough. Benedict says, not I, believe me. Beatrice, did he never make you laugh? Benedict, I pray you, what is he? And Beatrice says, not knowing that this is him, why, he is the prince's jester, a very dull fool. Only his only gift is in devising impossible slanders. None but libertines delight in him, and the commendation is not in his wit, but in his villainy, for he both pleases men and angers them, and then they laugh at him and beat him. I am sure he is in the fleet. I would he had boarded me. In other words, taken me on challenge. Benedict says, I know the gentleman. I'll tell him what you do. What a life. Let's continue on. We can look at a few others here quickly. This is Benedict on himself and women. Scene 3. Scene 3, line 9 and following. She says she wants to marry nobody. The beginning, line 9. So the play starts out with her hating all men. This is his comment about women. I do much wonder that one man, seeing how much another man is a fool when he dedicates his behaviors to love, will, after he hath laughed at such shallow follies in others, become the argument of his own scorn by falling in love. Such a man is Claudio. I have known when there was no music with him but the drum and the fife. And now had he rather hear the tabor and the pipe. I have known when he would have walked 10 mile afoot to see a good armor. And now will he lie 10 nights awake carving the fashion of a new doublet. See, you'd think that these people would have no hope whatsoever, since no man is good enough for her, boy or man. And he says, how is it that any man who at one time would have marched out to go to war, and that was all he was interested in, all of a sudden, all he wants to do is lie awake and plan his wardrobe, because Claudio has fallen in love. He was wont, at one time, to speak plain and to the purpose, like an honest man and a soldier. And now is he turned to orthography. His words are a very fantastical banquet, just so many strange dishes. May I be so converted and see with these eyes? If you're not in love, it's really hard to understand what love is like, isn't it? It's that transforming creature. He says, I'll never be changed. I cannot tell. I think not. I will not be sworn, but love may transform me to an oyster. But I'll take my oath on it, till he hath made an oyster of me, he shall never make me such a fool. One woman is fair, yet I am well. Another is wise, yet I am well. Another virtuous, yet I am well. But till all the graces be in one woman shall not come in my grace. Rich she shall be, that's certain. Wise, or I'll none. Virtuous, or I'll never cheapen her. Fair, or I'll ne'er look on her. Mild, or not come near me. Noble, or not I for an angel. Of good discourse, an excellent musician, and her hair shall be what color it pleases. It pleases God. What does he want in a woman? Absolute perfection. Except for one thing. She can have any color hair she wants, but she's got to be rich, beautiful, noble, honorable, right down the line. He is so cocky. And yet the point is, he's already in love with Beatrice, isn't he? So here he is defending himself. This is methinks the lady doth protest too much. All the way through. Let's turn for a second to Beatrice's reaction. I'm in the right spot here. Line 203 and following. Line 203. This is Benedict's reaction. What's he going to do when he hears that she's really totally in love with him? You remember the scene? He listens. His friends are going to trick them. The two men are going to have him hear that she loves him. The two women are going to have her hear the same thing in verse. So each of them is going to think that the other is secretly in love. Remember that? Look at his reaction. This can be no trick. It seems her affections have their full bent. Love me? Why, it must be requited. What is it? Does she really love me, this woman who's been bad-mouthing me forever? I've got to pay her back. I hear how I am censured. They say I will bear myself proudly if I perceive the love come from her. They say, too, that she will rather die than give any sign of affection. I did never think to marry. I must not seem proud. Happy are they that hear their detractions and can put them to mending. They say that the lady is fair. 'Tis a truth. I can bear them witness, and virtuous. 'Tis so. I cannot reprove it. And wise, but for loving me, by my troth, it is no addition to her wit, nor to no great argument of her folly, for, I will be horribly in love with her. I may chance have some odd quirks and remnants of wit broken on me, because I have railed so long against marriage. But doth not the appetite alter? A man loves the meat in his youth that he cannot endure in his age. These are comedies. You can't take them too seriously. Once he learns that she really loves him, in spite of the fact that she's been ferociously attacking him, all of a sudden what happens? Gosh, she's beautiful, smart, rich. I think I will love her. People will be mad at me because I've been so anti-marriage all my life. And then he says, what? Well, people change. People change. I used to hate tomatoes. Now I love them. So you'll take her. And look at her reaction in Act 3, Scene 1. The same thing happens. Line 107. Act 3, Scene 1. Line 107. Same thing has happened to her. What fire is in mine ears? Can this be true? Stand I condemned for pride and scorn so much? Contempt, farewell, and maiden pride, adieu. No glory lives behind the back of such, and Benedict, love on. I will requite thee, taming my heart to thy loving hand. If thou dost love, my kindness shall incite thee to bind our loves up in a holy band. For others say thou dost deserve, and I believe it better than reportingly. Oh, please. So there they are. They've totally admitted it. We're only in Act 3, Scene 1. How long is this going to go on? But they still have to have a few confrontations here. We'll just touch on a couple of these and then take a break. Turn to Act 4, Scene 1, and you'll see the reappearance here. This is the two of them after the accusation. Line 252. Line 252. This is after Hero has been accused of being immoral, right? And now they're going to be allies. They're left alone on stage. Lady Beatrice, have you wept all this while? Benedict says. Yea, and I will weep a while longer. Benedict says, I will not desire that. You have no reason. I do it freely. Surely I do believe your fair cousin is wronged. Ah, how much might the man deserve of me that would right her? Is there any way I can? And any way to show such friendship? A very even way, but no such friend. May a man do it? It is a man's office, but not yours. I do love nothing in the world so well as you. Is not that strange? And Beatrice says, as strange as the thing I know not. It were as possible for me to say I love nothing so well as you. Well, no. I guess we don't have to read the rest of them, right? Because they're going to be allies. What is she going to ask of him? To kill Claudio. Right? Will he do it? Well, he says he will, but he won't. They'll have a challenge, and it'll all come out just fine at the end. His main problem is Act 5, is that he can't write poetry, and I'll end with that one, I think. Act 5, Scene 2. Around line 28. Ah, here we'll try singing. The God of love that sits above and knows me, how pitiful I deserve. I mean in singing. But in loving Leander, the good swimmer, Troilus, the first employer of panders, and a whole book of those quondam carpetmongers whose names yet run smoothly in the even road of a blank verse, why, they were never so truly turned over and over as my poor self in love. Mary, I cannot show it in rhyme. I have tried. I can find out no rhyme to lady, but baby. That's an innocent rhyme. For scorn, horn, a hard rhyme. For school, fool, a babbling rhyme. Very ominous endings. No, I was not born under a rhyming planet, nor I cannot woo in festival terms. That's really one of the neatest speeches in the play, I think. And so they go off and they do their thing. Beatrice is hard on the outside, sharp-tongued and witty. What's she like, really? She's just a total softie. Why is she so tough? Because if you're soft, you get hurt. Yes, you turn into Ophelia. So she protects herself with a hard carapace. And he is just as soft as she is. But luckily, he's not Hamlet. He's a nice guy. And once they break through and the trick works, they can fall in love. After coffee, we can come back and talk about Miranda and see how she deals with total innocence. She's so innocent that she's never even seen a handsome young man except her father. Right? I mean, she's never seen people. Lived on an island pretty much her whole life. So we'll do that after coffee. We're at school, and if the kids are really good, I show it to them. It's a wonderful tape, so you'll have a good time dealing with it. All right, let's make a transition to The Tempest, and we'll see if I've got an hour's worth of innocence, I don't know. Yeah, right. Who do you want to go out with? Huh? Scarlett's so much more interesting than Melanie, isn't she? Have you done the Gone with the Wind ever? No. I was thinking of another book that you should do sometime. Have you ever done A Death in the Family by James H.E., which is the most wonderful book. Very sad. Last weekend, American Movie Classics had All the Way Home. Did you see the movie? It's the movie version of that book with Robert Preston as Jay, the father who dies in the car accident. And so it's that would be something you might ponder doing. If you don't mind doing something really sad, but great. All right, let's go back, continue on with Innocence for a while anyway. The Tempest is it's a really different play. It's one of the very last plays. It was extremely popular. It was written around 1610. So Shakespeare is nearing the end of his career, and the famous speech where Prospero breaks his staff and sends his books to the bottom of the sea are often seen as Shakespeare's own valedictory address, saying, I am no longer going to write. I'll pass it on. I was really surprised when I picked it up again this weekend to reread it for you, to see how short it is. I mean, it's a very short play. I was expecting to have to sit for 5 or 6 hours and ponder, and I think I was done in 2 hours, which is not much at all for Shakespeare. My recent experience with The Tempest is having seen Prospero's books, which I don't know if I dare to suggest that you go check out and read or watch. Better to read it. Have any of you seen the movie Prospero's books? What did you think of it? You hated it? It's I think it's a shocking and beautiful exploration of this play. It's more nudity than you'll ever see in many years of real living, all right, because there's a lot of it. But it is, I think it's a valid exploration of the play. And the theme of that movie is words and the writing of words. And you actually watch Prospero writing words on the page. I saw it in the theater and I checked it out later to watch it again. And the second time, I really think I'm astounded by it. But don't go if you're easily shocked. I mean, don't check it out. It's a shocking film. But it's very true in spirit to the movie, to the play. Especially true, I think, in certain characters. Caliban is incredible in the movie. He is an animal. He looks like an animal. And Prospero is Sir John Gielgud, so you can imagine this is well cast. But let's meditate a little bit about what's going on in The Tempest. and then talk about Miranda's role in it and the evolution of this character and this kind of innocence. Prospero is the deposed Duke of Milan, right? He's been kicked out by his brother, and only through the good wishes of one member of his court, a wise man named Gonzalo, was he and his 3-year-old daughter, Miranda, were they allowed to live. They were put on a boat with some of his books and set adrift. He was susceptible to being kicked off the throne because he was only interested in learning. He didn't tend the state. And Shakespeare is going to say about any king who doesn't tend the state, you're going to be destroyed. It happens to Lear, and it happens to Richard II, and it happens to Richard III. You must do your job. So even though we admire Prospero, he has a lesson to learn. And in this play, everybody who is given to weakness has a lesson to learn. And it's a play which is a gentle spanking, or not so gentle spanking as the case may be. When the play begins, the king of Naples, along with Prospero's brother, who is now in his throne, is returning from Algeria, where the king's daughter, Claribel, has married. And the king is returning with his son, Ferdinand, and they get caught in a storm. And the play begins, as you remember, with this fantastic description of the storm that the ship is going through, and it's going to sink. The scene is so vividly described that in history of the play, people have believed that Shakespeare had to be a sailor in order to write it. Of course, they also believe he had to be a lawyer in order to do Merchant of Venice, and it's his imagination which makes it possible, surely. They find themselves then on the island that Prospero has lived in and ruled with his magic for probably 15 years, if Miranda's around 18. And on that island there are 2 adults and 2 sort of creatures of nature. Prospero and his daughter, which is the human community, and then Prospero's magic servant, Ariel, who was placed in a tree for 12 years, I believe, by the wicked witch Sycorax, who had ruled that island before Prospero landed there. Freed by Prospero, Ariel does his wishes. Also on the island is this monster Caliban, who is the son of the wicked witch. So you have a situation where you have an island which was once inhabited by black magic, now being inhabited by white magic. Prospero's magic is not evil, it's good. And with his magic, he can create any consequence for any act he wants, for Ariel or for Caliban, and he could call up spirits so that you can actually see things happening. You have a mask in the middle of this play. Before the humans come in from the ship, there's a kind of stasis. Things have been like this since they got there. They're waiting for the resolution. The only thing that has happened in the island for 15 years is the growth of Miranda from a child into an adult. And she's waiting for the first time to encounter some other human being than her father. The only potential tragedy in the island is in the figure of Caliban, who now, a servant, a slave to Prospero, has found his animal desires directed towards the only woman on the island, who is Miranda. Actually, it says in the play that Prospero would have fed him, educated him, and raised him, and treated him kindly had he not tried to attack Miranda. And his punishment is to be the slave, the servant. So you have this kind of interesting situation where you have a godlike figure who's totally in control and therefore not to be surprised by anything, who actually has a magic servant, Ariel. And you have Ariel being this ethereal, happy creature who wants only freedom and will be given it, balanced by Caliban, who is like unredeemed natural lust and very repellent. In the middle, 2 human beings. When the ship crashes, the sailors are put asleep, the ship is kept whole, put in a cove, and the important figures are scattered around the island, really in three groups. One of them is the group of Ferdinand, the handsome young man all by himself. Another is the group of politicians, and a third are the sailors who are the comic relief. And now, with that power, he's going to bring these people together. Everybody is going to get a proper punishment and a proper lesson, or a proper reward, as the case may be, with Gonzalo, who is going to be rewarded for his faithfulness. It's a beautiful play. It's been extremely successful on stage. I think it's very hard to put on stage. It's hard to create that magic. The one time I taught it when I was young in my career at Wisconsin, I found it almost impossible to teach. That's very hard. It's unusual for me to find something I can't get a handle on. But I will never forget trying to teach it and finding that its evanescence was too much for me. I would get these kids together and I would try to talk about it, but it sort of fell apart in my hands, which even makes me nervous talking about it with you. I tend to avoid teaching this play. But since I'm going to take a single focus, maybe it'll work for a while, at least for another 40 minutes. We'll see. Let's start by looking at Miranda as she appears and kind of keep in mind the idea of her innocence in a world where she is at risk. If her father is not there, Caliban will take her. He wants to breed, he says, more Calibans. So even though she's innocent and untouched and has never even seen a man other than her father, she's not totally secure. So we'll kind of watch this. Nonetheless, her insecurity is farcical. It's not real. Okay. Turn to Act 1, Scene 2. Prospero and Miranda enter. All right. Do some reading. The poetry is beautiful, so just to listen to it is nice. Miranda says to her father, "If by your art, my dearest father, you have put the wild waters in this roar, allay them. The sky, it seems, would pour down stinking pitch, but that the sea, mounting to the welkin's cheek, dashes the fire out. Oh, I have suffered with those that I saw suffer. A brave vessel, who had no doubt some noble creature in her, dashed all to pieces. Oh, the cry did knock against my very heart. Poor souls, they perished. Had I been any god of power, I would have sunk the sea within the earth, or ere it should the good ship so have swallowed, and the frightening souls within her." Her first speech tells us quite a bit about her. What kind of a person is she? The first line saying, "If you with your art have put the wild waters in this uproar." So what do we know in terms of the world of power that she exists in? Yeah, this is not, for you and me, I mean, automatically this is nature, right? But she knows very well this could be the result of her father's power. So she's living under an immediate awareness of an incredible strength. Maybe he did this. The other thing we know is what about her? Yes, right. She's watched this ship, these people, like she heard them crying. And so she's coming to her father saying, "Oh, this was terrible, terrible. How could it happen?" We know right away with one speech that we like her. And we're also a little bit worrisome about her father, because the first line is, "If you did this." So we don't know when the play begins. We've just finished the horrible scene on the ship. We don't know if this is going to be a tragedy yet or a comedy. Notice Prospero's response, which is, I think, typical of the way this play functions. He says, "Be collected. No more amazement. Tell your piteous heart there's no harm done." What's the point about that response for us as an audience? Calm you down. Don't worry about it. Okay? Actually, often you go to a play for exactly that reason, right? I mean, is it going to work out all right? I just had my students rereading Jack London's short story, "To Build a Fire." Any of you know the story? And it's a naturalistic story about this idiot up in the Yukon who goes out in 70 below zero weather and a wind, when he's told by everybody, "Don't go out," and he says, "I know better." And he goes out and he kills himself. He freezes to death. He was able to start one fire, which he does under a tree where there's snow, which melts and falls in the fire and puts it out. And every time you read the story, and I had students writing about this because they have read it several times over the years, every time you read it, you just want to say to this man, "Stop what you're doing, you dope." And the tension in the story is your inability to interfere with it. That's not the case with this play at all. We know right away, no sweat, nobody's hurt, relax, have some popcorn. Okay, so Miranda says, "Oh, woe the day." Prospero says, "No harm. I have done nothing but in care of thee, my dear one, thee, my daughter, who art ignorant of what thou art, not knowing of whence I am, nor that I am more better than Prospero, master of a full poor cell, and thy no greater father." We also learn, right, the first line of this speech tells us something about what this play is about. What is it about? I have done nothing but in care of thee. So what's the whole play about? Yes, to bring her into the world, find her the right guy. He's not surprised. She's going to end up totally happy. Miranda says, "More to know, did never meddle with my thoughts." Well, what's her problem? He says, "I want you to come out all right and get a happy husband and everything." And she says, "Well, I'm totally happy living here with you." He's every father's ideal daughter, right? I don't need a man. Prospero, however, who's wiser than I am, says, "'Tis time I should inform thee farther. Lend thy hand and pluck my magic garment from me. So, lie there, my art." Puts his magic garment down. "Wipe thou thine eyes. Have comfort. The direful spectacle of the rack which touched the very virtue of compassion in thee, I have with such provision in mine art. So safely order it, that there is no soul, no, not so much perdition as an hair betid to any creature in the vessel which thou heardst cry." And then we have a long scene, which is mainly exposition, actually, explaining the circumstance. It's the one element of the play where it sort of slows down and action is not going on. And he tells her all about the circumstances of it, about the circumstances of their life. It's been 12 years since your father was the Duke of Milan and so forth. Let's come back to that if we have extra time. As it is, let's pursue Miranda and watch what happens. Act 3, Scene 1. Act 3. We'll skip over Act 2. I'm awfully tempted to talk about Caliban, who's exceptionally interesting. What's happened between Act 1 and Act 3? Well, part of this goal of her happiness is Ferdinand, who is the ideal young man. He's found wandering. Prospero takes him in and makes a servant of him. We first encounter him here in Act 3, Scene 1. He's being forced to haul wood, okay? Which is what Caliban has to do. So the two of them are servants. Caliban an unwilling servant, but Ferdinand a willing servant. Look at how this scene begins, because Miranda is watching this young guy. He's probably got his shirt off, drinking a Pepsi-Cola, like in the commercial, with all the women looking from the window, So he looks pretty good. And notice his first words to us. "There be some sports are painful, and their labor delight in them sets off." Well, that's true, isn't it? There are some things you do that are painful to do, but you enjoy doing them so much that the pleasure of doing them sets them off, like racquetball or handball. Only a fool wants to do it, but people who do it enjoy it, so that's all right. "Some kinds of baseness are nobly undergone, and most poor matters point to rich ends. This is my mean task." He's carrying a log. This my mean task would be as heavy to me as odious. But the mistress which I serve quickens what's dead and makes my labors pleasures. What's the difference between him and Caliban? He would carry logs forever for Miranda. Right? She is wonderful. Oh, she is 10 times more gentle than her father's crab. And he is composed of harshness. What has Prospero done? He's found this guy wandering, right? And he's treated him very cruelly. You know this. The worst thing you can do is to tell your daughter that her boyfriend's a jerk. Because what happens when you say that? Yeah, they have to. Ann Landers told us that. If you try to separate your daughter from that jerk, she will embrace him all the more. So parents have to be, and what is Prospero doing? He's saying, look at this jerk, making him that much more interesting to his daughter. All boys who date your daughters are jerks, so it doesn't really make any difference anyway, right? And of course, she's wonderful. Her father's treated him cruelly. I must remove some thousands of these logs and pile them up upon a sore injunction. This is supposed to take place in, like, the Bermudas. But the Bermudas in this play are like between Algiers and Milan. I mean, there's a sort of geological problem here, right? And if it is like the Bermudas, which is very much in the current air in Shakespeare's day because of a recent accident where a ship sunk and the survivors made it to Bermuda and lived. You know Andrew Marvell's poem, The Bermudas? Wonderful poem. What's the point? I mean, even if it's in the Mediterranean or the Bermudas, what's odd about this? Yeah, what are you going to do with the logs? I mean, burn them? Keep warm? It's plenty warm here. So this is just a make-work task, I think, yeah. My sweet mistress weeps when she sees me work, and says such baseness had never like executor. Oh, what happens when he works and sweats? Oh, my dad is so cruel, I can't believe it. Nobody ever did such low work who looked as good as I do. That's what that line means. See? I forget but these sweet thoughts to even refresh my labors, most busy least when I do it. So what do you do if you have a lousy job like piling wood? You think about a girl, and how does it feel? Time just flies. It's amazing. So Miranda comes in. Prospero in this scene is hiding behind a tree or a bush watching. He's going to do everything he can to forbid their being in love with each other, to ensure that they fall in love with each other. Alas, how now pray you work not so hard. I would the lightning had burnt up those logs that you are enjoined to pile. Pray set it down and rest you. When this burns, it will weep for having wearied you. My father is hard at study. Pray now rest yourself. He's safe for these 3 hours. But she's supposed to be an innocent. I was thinking this the other night. Is she that innocent? What is she? She's already scoped out the old man, but like most teenagers, she's not quite right. They always think the old man's busy at work, right? They don't think we'd see anything or know anything. So we've got 3 hours, so put down your logs. Ferdinand says, O most dear mistress, the sun will set before I shall discharge what I must strive to do. Miranda, if you'll sit down, I'll bear your logs the while. Pray, give me that. I'll carry it to the pile. I'm sure she's carried this little cute little log, she's probably... Miranda, she's wearing some white little diaphanous thing, and he's just all manly sweat, looking totally cool. It must be totally sweet for him to see her take that log. He says, no, precious creature, I had rather crack my sinews, break my back, than you should such dishonor undergo while I sit lazy by. You're just jealous, right? This is a totally different world from Benedict and Beatrice. Have you noticed that? I mean, which do you prefer? The tart-tongued, smart-mouthed battle or the... Yeah. Oh, you really do want the syrup, don't you? I mean, someplace, the tart. I wonder what, say, Beatrice would say to Ferdinand. You play this little game of put somebody in the wrong place. Miranda says it would become me as well as it does you, and I should do it with much more ease, for my good will is to it, and yours is against. Prospero says to us, poor worm, thou art infected. What's he seen? She's bit. She's in love. It's hopeless. This visitation shows it. Miranda looks at him. She's probably got a handkerchief on him. You look wearily. No, noble mistress, 'tis fresh morning with me when you are by at night. I do beseech you, chiefly that I might set it in my prayers. What is your name? He doesn't even know her, right? It may be midnight, but if I'm with you, it's morning time. By the way, what's your name? I keep looking. When's he going to say, what's your sign? You know, it's like, Miranda, oh, my father, I have broke your hest to say so. Oh, my goodness, what's she done, this innocent girl? He has ordered her not to tell her name. Ferdinand picks right up on it. Admired Miranda, indeed, the top of admiration, worth what's dearest to the world. Full many a lady I have eyed with best regard, and many a time the harmony of their tongues hath into bondage brought my too diligent ear. For several virtues have I liked several women, never any with so full soul, but some defect in her did quarrel with the noblest grace she owed, and put it to the foil. But you, oh you, so perfect and so peerless, are created of every creature's best. Yeah, guys like to do this. What's he just saying? He's kind of put it in sort of cynical modern terms. And he says things like, full many a time I have eyed with best regard many a lady. For several virtues I have liked several women. What's he saying to her? I am an experienced man. I have had a lot of girlfriends over the years. Some of them I liked for this reason, some of them I liked for that reason, but I'll tell you what, babe, I have never come across. Miranda's answer, I do not know one of my sex. No woman's face, remember, save from my glass, mine own. Meaning what? Yeah, the only face of a woman I ever seen is my own glass. It's the mirror in my face. Nor have I seen more that I may call men than you, good friend, and my dear father. How features are abroad, I am skilless of. But by my modesty, the jewel in my dower, I would not wish any companion in the world but you, nor can imagine form a shape beside yourself to like of. So he just says, I'm an experienced man, and you are the best-looking babe I have ever seen. And she comes back with the archetypal woman's response, which is, I don't know anything about the world at all, right? I don't know what makes a beautiful woman, and the only man I've ever seen is you. But you look pretty good to me. You know, it's a great wooing job. The thing is, Hero really is totally innocent, but I think Miranda's instinctively a woman who knows how to relate to people, don't you? I mean, she is innocent, but she's not a fool. She knows she says, oh, I prattle something too wildly, and my father's precepts I therein do forget. In other words, Dad has said, don't tell him your name, and also what his dad said. I prattle too wildly, and my father's precepts I do forget. Don't talk very much with him. Does she know? This is supposed to be an obedient, innocent girl. She's well aware of what her father wants, and she's going to do it her way. I can't get my daughter off the telephone, right? It doesn't do any good what I say, right? I may have a phone call to make, but teenage angst takes precedence. Ferdinand says, I am, in my condition, a prince, Miranda. I do think a king. I would not so. Meaning what, by the way? I am a prince. In fact, I think I am a king. I wish I weren't. I hope my father isn't dead, yeah. And would no more endure this wooden slavery than to suffer the flesh fly blow my mouth. Hear my soul speak. The very instant that I saw you, did my heart fly to your service. There resides to make me slave to it, and for your sake I am this patient log man. Do you love me? O heaven, O earth, bear witness to this sound, and crown what I profess with kind event, if I speak true. If hollowly invert what best is boded me to mischief, I, beyond all limit of what else in the world, do love, prize, honor you. She starts crying. Girls do this. I am a fool to weep at what I am glad of. Why is she crying? Yeah, who says, O brave new world that hath such creatures in it? She says it. But who's the one who's fallen totally in love, head over heels on first sight? The man of the world. Before she falls in love, he falls in love, and he is an urban man. He comes from Well, it comes from Naples. I mean, see Naples and die. I'll go to Naples and die, right? And it's a huge city, so there he is. Prospero says, fair encounter of two most rare affections, heaven's rain grace on that which breathes between them. What are we also not to worry about? Right? He is not opposed to them. He's just making them struggle a little bit to get their freedom. And the scene comes to an end. Ferdinand, seeing her crying, of course he thinks, why do you weep? At mine unworthiness, that dare not offer what I desire to give, and much less take what I shall die to want. But this is trifling, and all the more it seeks to hide itself, the bigger bulk it shows. Hence, bashful cunning, and prompt me, plain and holy innocence. I am your wife, if you will marry me. If not, I'll die your maid. Yeah. Yeah, it's in the same speech. It's the same scene. She didn't know his name. No, if you were the only girl in the world and I was the only boy. Yeah. Yeah. I figure probably, since she's never seen him, it could be played by John Candy or something, I mean, no, I haven't seen that. Ferdinand? Caliban. Yes, Caliban. That's a good point. Even though he's a monster, his poetry is fantastic. It's great. He did. I can't see him as Ferdinand. I'm trying to imagine it as a... Okay. All right. Yeah. So they're happy. All right. She says, to be your fellow you may deny me, but I'll be your servant. Oh, we skipped a point. Hence, bashful cunning. What is one of the reasons why she is forced to go against her father, supposedly, in order to get this relationship? When she says, hence, bashful cunning, prompt me, plain and holy innocence. So what's she having to do in one scene? Yes, but what is she trying to... Since he's manipulating it, he's right there actually on stage. What's he manipulating her through when she says, get away, bashful cunning, I will allow pure innocence? She's not a child anymore, right? Bashful. She's got to stand up. If she wants this guy, she's going to have to say it. So in a sense, the scene all of a sudden takes you from being 10 years old, where you're shy and cunning and uncertain, to being a woman, and she says, this is the man I want. She does have no alternatives, but this is what. So he's pushing her very quickly into an adult relationship. I figure she's about 18, 15 to 18, 15. And they've been there 12 years. Yeah, so 15. Yeah, sounds right. That's right. But 15, and of course there's a play too. Even in Shakespeare's day, 15 is not too young for a woman to marry in actual life. So yeah. Totally aside, do you know that John Donne's wife Anne died when she was 33 in her 13th confinement? Doesn't that has nothing to do with what we're talking about? But I came across the detail yesterday, and my mouth just... You think she was... Wow. So, but I don't know. He was devastated. John and Anne Donne had a very strong marriage, and you know that he went to jail. He ran away with her, eloped with her against the law, and he was thrown in jail for marrying her. So it was a terrible loss. But we're talking a pregnancy a year, right? I mean, so anyway, that's all about nothing. It isn't? No, it's something. Well, it did cross my mind when I read that. There must be thousands of John Donne's descendants alive today if he had 13 kids, right? So, yeah. Okay, let's finish this scene and touch on a couple of others here. They're happy. My husband, yes, I, with a heart as willing as bondage air of freedom. Here's my hand, and mine with my heart in it. And now, farewell. They've just pledged each other to marry, and what do? Well, they do, but how do they do it? They shake hands. Will you marry me? Sure. What's your name? What was that name again? Yeah. So they go off. They leave Prospero alone on stage. So glad of this as they, I cannot be, who are surprised withal, but my rejoicing at nothing can be more. I'll to my book. All right, he's got some plans. Here is his cookbook, make things work. Let's pursue this a little bit more by getting her from another angle. Turn to scene 2 of the same act, and look at Caliban talking about Miranda. He's talking to Stefano, who's one of the comic figures. And this is around line 80, in the speech that's around line 85 or so. Here are his plans. 'Tis a custom with him, Prospero, in the afternoon to sleep. There thou mayest brain him, having first seized his books, or with a log batter his skull, or punch him with a stake, or cut his wizened with a knife. So, your wizened is your gullet, you know. Remember first to possess his books, for without them he's but a sot, as I am, nor hath not one spirit to command. That's not true. As Prospero does not need his books. He's not just a Caliban without his books. He actually gets rid of his books at the end of the play. They all do hate him as rootedly as I. Is that true? No. Burn but his books. He has brave utensils, for so he calls them, which when he has a house he'll deck withal. And then most deeply to consider is the beauty of his daughter. He himself calls her a nonpareil. What's a nonpareil? Yeah. Now, Caliban doesn't know anything about women, so he wouldn't know what to compare, right? But Prospero does know women, and he says that she is unequaled in beauty. I never saw a woman, but only Sycorax, my dam, and but she as far surpasseth Sycorax as greatest does least. Stefano's interested in this girl. Is it so brave a lass? Aye, Lord, she will become thy bed, I warrant, and bring thee forth brave brood. Locker room. You can hear him punching him in the side. Side with his elbow. Caliban, when he says, Sycorax, my dam, she will bring you forth brave brood, shows you his perspective, which is what? What is dam and brood? See, it's animals. He's incapable of seeing Miranda as a beautiful person. He sees her only as an attractive mate. And so we're down at the animal level. And of course, there is a certain element in all of us that sees people of the opposite sex that are attractive in an animalistic way. And Caliban is expressing that, degrading her beauty. Stefano says, Monster, I will kill this man. His daughter and I will be kings, save our graces, and Trinculo and thyself shall be viceroys. Dost thou like the plot? All right. Turn over to Act 4, Scene 1, and we'll get another. We're skipping, of course, a lot of other stuff. Prospero decides that they've suffered enough being separated by him, and he's going to give Miranda to Ferdinand. It's an interesting scene as well. Act 4, Scene 1. Prospero and Ferdinand and Miranda are together, and Prospero speaks. If I have too austerely punished you, your compensation makes amends. For I have given you here a third of mine own life, or that for which I live, who once again I tender to thy hand. So he is officially doing what fathers must do. You can pretend to give your hand to your beloved, but fathers have to do it, don't they? All thy vexations were but my trials of thy love, and thou hast strangely stood the test. Here afore heaven I ratify this my rich gift. O Ferdinand, do not smile at me that I boast her off, for thou shalt find she will outstrip all praise. and make it halt behind her. I do believe it against an oracle. Then, as my gift and thine own acquisition worthily purchased, take my daughter. But if thou dost break her virgin knot before all sanctimonious ceremonies may with full and holy rite be ministered, no sweet aspersion shall the heavens let fall to make this contract grow, but barren hate, sour-eyed disdain, and discord shall bestrew the union of your bed with weeds so loathly that you shall hate it both. Therefore take heed, as Hymen's lamp shall light you. Two things happening in that little speech. One is you recognize right away how important words are, ceremony and ritual. And when he says, I give you the hand of my daughter, that's it. It's finished. We're still in the Renaissance where words have great importance. And you must have this. I mean, it would be nice if they still asked dads, right, can I marry your daughter? Because there is a kind of generational transition going on. It should go the other way around, too, by the way, which never was a transition in the same way. The other thing that's happening is that he very clearly says you must not sleep with each other until you're married. He set this up against what Caliban, which is, of course, cannibal, rearranged, what he wants, which is just to assault her, to rape her. He wants her in violation of any ritual, of any civilized function in terms of men and women. He just wants her because he's an animal, and that's what animals do. What we have here is, what's the reason why, since they're the only two people on the island, they should wait? They should wait because proper actions in proper times. And the whole play is about improper actions in improper times. And what he's trying to do, not only in terms of Miranda and Ferdinand, but in terms of his own throne and the complicity of his brother and the king, is to make things come back into their places again. And it actually has a strong feeling of rightness to it. And Ferdinand says, as I hope for quiet days, actually we should even maybe say one more word about that. If they don't wait, what's going to happen to their marriage? It will be misery. And they will never what? He says, you will have barren hate, sour-eyed disdain, and discord. No children. Hatred. If you don't enter a marriage in the right spirit, you doom the marriage. Well, I try to talk about that to high school kids who don't embrace a sense of appropriateness in sequencing actions. And that's what he's getting at here. Ferdinand says, as I hope for quiet days, fair issue, meaning children, and long life, with such love as 'tis now, the murkiest den, the most opportune place, the strongest suggestion our worser genius can, shall never melt mine honor into lust, to take away the edge of that day's celebration, when I shall think, or Phoebus' steeds are foundered, or night kept chained below. Prospero approves of that, because he's got the right man. Fairly spoke. Sit then and talk with her, she is thine own. And then he calls up Ariel. Look at them for one last time in Act 5, Scene 1, as we come to the end of the play. We come across Miranda and Ferdinand playing chess, which is odd, isn't it? Yes. Miranda says to her fiancé, sweet lord, you play me false. Ferdinand says, no, my dearest love, I would not for the world. Yes, for a score of kingdoms you should wrangle, and I would call it fair play. This Alonso, the father, if this prove a vision of the island, one dear son shall I twice lose. Because his father's come on and sees his daughter, his son, who he thought is dead. He said, I cannot believe it. It was just a vision. Sebastian says, a most high miracle. Ferdinand says, though the seas threaten, they are merciful. I have cursed them without cause. And kneels in front of his father. Alonso now is happy. This is the reunion scene. Now all the blessings of a glad father compass thee about. Arise and say how thou camest here. And then we have the most famous lines from The Tempest. Oh wonder, how many goodly creatures are there here. How beauteous mankind is. Oh, brave new world that has such people in it. I discovered that people tend to remember that speech as being uttered by Miranda when she first sees Ferdinand. In other words, she sees this gorgeous young man and says, "Wow, brave new world." That's not when she says it. She says it when she sees the rabble, the rest of the world. So she's not exclaiming on how gorgeous a man looks like in a shirt, in no shirt and a Pepsi-Cola. She's talking about the variety. Her father, Sebastian, Alonso, right here they are. And she's saying, it's a great world where this exists. And these are not particularly beautiful people. The mariners show up, right? Even Trinculo and Sebastian and these guys, they show up. Even Caliban. And so the end, if you take this line as the line of the play, you have the most innocent, inexperienced person in the world essentially asserting the validity and the rightness of people being brought together, happiness coming to an end. She's got the right man. Shakespeare says, I'm done writing. I'm going to go out to Stratford and buy property until I die. I had more fun talking about that than I thought I was going to. So that's Miranda and the Tempest. And maybe I'll see you next year.